the Second World War, a conflict that engulfed the globe, leaving scars that would redefine humanity. Over 60 million lives were lost, cities were turned to rubble, and empires crumbled. But what rose from those ashes? The world we live in today was forged in the fire of that conflict, shaped by its devastating consequences. This isn't just a story of destruction. It's the story of a world desperately trying to rebuild itself, to learn from its most catastrophic failure, and to create a future where such a tragedy could never happen again. The immediate aftermath was a landscape of desolation. Across Europe and Asia, entire nations lay in ruins. Millions were displaced, wandering a continent stripped of infrastructure, food, and hope. Economies were shattered. The old powers of Britain and France, though victorious, were financially and psychologically exhausted, their colonial empires beginning to unravel. In this vacuum, two new superpowers emerged, standing ideologically opposed: the United States and the Soviet Union. Their rivalry would soon chill the world in a new kind of conflict, the Cold War, a tense standoff under the terrifying shadow of the atomic bomb, a weapon born from the very war that had just ended. But beyond the geopolitical shifts, a profound moral reckoning was underway. The world had witnessed the systematic horror of the Holocaust, an industrialized genocide that defied comprehension. The question echoed in the ruins. How could this have happened? How could humanity prevent such atrocities from ever recurring? The answer was sought not in treaties between nations, but in a new concept of justice that transcended borders. This led to one of the most significant legal precedents in history: the Nuremberg trials. For the first time, leaders of a sovereign nation were held accountable by an international tribunal for crimes against humanity. The defense that they were just following orders was rejected. This was a revolutionary idea. It established that individuals, no matter their rank, could be prosecuted for atrocities, and that certain actions are illegal even if permitted by national law. The Nuremberg principles laid the groundwork for modern international criminal law, influencing the creation of later tribunals for Rwanda and the former Yugoslavia, and eventually the International Criminal Court. The Tokyo trials followed, applying similar principles in the Pacific Theater. A new age of international justice had dawned. Simultaneously, a global political project was taking shape. The League of Nations, created after the First World War, had failed spectacularly to prevent the Second. A new, more robust organization was needed. In San Francisco in the spring of 1945, even as the war still raged in the Pacific, delegates from 50 nations gathered. Their mission was monumental: to draft a charter for an organization that could maintain international peace and security, promote human rights, and foster social and economic progress. On October 24, 1945, the United Nations was born. Its charter began with the powerful words, "We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war." The UN was designed to be different from the League. It had a Security Council with 5 permanent members, the victorious Allied powers, equipped with veto power, a mechanism intended to ensure the great powers would remain engaged. It also had a General Assembly, a forum for all member states, and a host of specialized agencies like the World Health Organization and UNICEF, tasked with tackling the root causes of conflict: poverty, disease, and ignorance. The UN's early years were immediately tested by the Cold War, which often paralyzed the Security Council. Yet its impact was undeniable. In 1948, under the guidance of figures like Eleanor Roosevelt, the UN General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This document, for the very first time, articulated fundamental rights and freedoms to be universally protected for all people. It declared that human dignity was inherent and inalienable. While not a legally binding treaty itself, it became the moral and legal bedrock for hundreds of constitutions, laws, and international treaties that followed. It was a direct response to the barbarism of the war, a promise from the world to itself. The war also accelerated decolonization. The European empires, weakened and facing pressure from both the US and the USSR, could no longer maintain their grip. A wave of independence movements swept across Asia and Africa. Nations like India, Indonesia, and dozens across the African continent gained their sovereignty, dramatically changing the map of the world and the composition of the United Nations itself. This was a messy, often violent process, but it was an irreversible consequence of the old world order being shattered. Economically, the world learned a hard lesson from the post-WWI era, where punitive reparations and economic depression helped sow the seeds for the next conflict. This time, the approach was different, at least in the West. The United States launched the Marshall Plan, a massive aid program to rebuild Western Europe. The goal was not just humanitarian. It was also strategic, to create stable, prosperous democracies that would be resistant to the appeal of communism. This led to the creation of institutions like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, designed to stabilize the global economy and prevent the kind of financial collapse that had preceded the war. So, when we look at our world today, at the international laws that prosecute war criminals, at the blue-helmeted peacekeepers in conflict zones, at the declaration that all humans are born free and equal in dignity and rights, we are looking at the direct legacy of the Second World War. It was a conflict so terrible that it forced humanity to institutionalize its hopes for a better world. The systems we created are imperfect, often criticized, and constantly challenged. The UN has not ended war, and human rights are violated every day. But the framework exists. The principles have been established. The war taught us that nationalism unchecked leads to catastrophe, that economic collapse can breed extremism, and that the world is too small for any of us to be indifferent to the suffering of others. The legacy of World War II is not just the memory of its horrors, but the ongoing, difficult, and absolutely essential project of building a global community capable of cooperation, justice, and peace. It's a project that began in the ruins of 1945, and it's a responsibility that continues with us today. If you found this exploration meaningful, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world.